Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mike and Peter talking about mental health and well-being in the legal profession. We have, as usual, been talking about different things with other people, and when we get together, we just check up where are we with things. So today is a checkup. It's a health checkup on the concept of mental health first aiders. Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Have we learned to live with them? Have we learned to work with them? Certainly, this side of the Atlantic in the UK, the waves are a bit choppy and with white foam on top sometimes. And I can imagine you have some interesting debates in the States as well. So my curiosity, speaking with you, of course, is how prevalent is mental health first aiders in the legal profession? Do we
Yeah, I
know?
think I don't know the answer to that, so I can speak only anecdotally.
Hmm.
I got trained on it last year at some point. I heard about the course. I know in the US, um, they're offered at the state level, and I live in New Jersey, and they offered it for free, so I took the course. I thought it was quite good, and the mental health first aider, just for folks that aren't familiar with the term, what you get is a certificate after the training, and you're not trained in the course of that one day to be a therapist, but what you are trained on is getting more comfortable with having the conversation about spotting when someone might need help and getting some practice guiding them to getting professional help. And I thought it was a pretty good course. I mean, I have seen since, I know of some law firms that have said, hey, go get trained, or we have a certain number of people that are trained as mental health first aiders. I know some directors of well-being who are trained. I don't think it's a real majority type thing or incredibly prevalent, but I do see some firms that are doing it and training people, as part of their mental health and well-being programs.
Because I've come up against, like so many other people, have two objections to
Mm.
mental health first aiders. We've all got used to the physical health first aider, and they are different because they can pick up somebody, they can stop the bleeding, they can ring an ambulance and hand over, and then it's job done. Whereas in mental health, they're not allowed to treat, they are allowed to signpost. Yeah, if you feel like this, maybe you should talk to these people, ring that number, that sort of thing, because they are not trained therapists.
Right.
They are, you and I are both mental health first aiders. You had a 1 day course, I had a 2 day course. There are two different types. And I thought my course was well delivered. And as a psychologist, I could have delivered it. But I also saw how full of holes it was,
Mm.
how difficult it would be for someone who's just interested in other people to take on that responsibility of actually having that conversation with a colleague and send them somewhere else, not knowing what happens next. Because no one actually picks up that person like an ambulance does. So it's all up to the person needing the help to be willing to talk to a colleague. You might not want that because what rumors could start around and confidentiality and all that stuff. But there's also a legal aspect. I know a lot of organizations will not use mental health first aiders because of liability, and we put them in that position. So if something goes wrong or the first aider, him or herself, starts to feel traumatized, well, as an employer, I'm responsible. I'll be a lawsuit coming very soon. So it's fraught with difficulty. And I think it's a fantastic initiative. I like it. I think we should, it's one way of focusing on our mental health and our being human beings at work. But we we're asking people to take on a job that isn't a job, something they're not qualified to do. And yeah, I'm not quite sure anymore where I sit. I used to love the idea, but I'm getting more and more concerned about it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe I'm still in that honeymoon phase because it's new to me, right? And it's ironic, right, that the legal issues, drive some of these issues. Having a real liability mindset might make you be afraid of this initiative, right? Why are we having people talk about these issues? What could happen? What if something goes wrong? I mean, but to me, I think it emphasizes, and you're right, I think it's a great point, right? There's no ambulance that's going to come pick it up. I think if you're going through a mental health issue or crisis, you really need support, and you need, ideally that's, someone in your life, family support. But look, we do spend a lot of time at work, and so having someone that can lend an ear and be comfortable with that conversation, and be part of that support, I think has value. And to me, I think the part it addresses is that so many people are uncomfortable having that conversation, that it makes a very, just because of people's fears, legitimate fears, right? Like, what do I say? What if I say the wrong thing? Ideas which I think have been scientifically unproven. Like, if I ask them if they're having suicidal thoughts, does that put the idea there? Things that we now know that's not correct, but people have a natural, fear of talking about these issues, and I get it. And I think it's because, so I think it helps to have, some education around it, and say, hey, here's what you can do, and then and be more comfortable doing that. And no, you're not going to be a therapist, but here's how you can spot something, and here's kind of where you can send them, and sort of empower them with that information. So on that level, I do like it.
I just have this thought that if you have one mental health first aider in a company, you need to have at least two. Because when one is off sick or on holiday, well, who covers? So why not take it one step further? Why not put everybody on the mental health first aid training, so that everybody starts at the same level? They have the same knowledge, the same understanding. Then maybe it's easier to have those conversations as and when you're not seen as going to the so-called therapist at work. There will
be anyone.
It could be anyone. You all have the same understanding. And we have spread the word far wider that we are just human beings, and sometimes we need a conversation about something. And it could be work related, it could be home related. So I know a lot of people don't want to go and talk to a mental health first aider, because everybody knows that he or she wears that badge or has that certificate in their office. And the perception or the fear is that I can only talk to him or her if I have a problem. So you can't go and talk football or the party you had over the weekend with that person, because it looks as if we're talking about a problem. And yeah, I'm not too keen on putting that responsibility on a person. But one of the things that have changed is that you now have a refresher course you didn't before, and there's also more emphasis on looking after the mental health first aider themselves, because they were just totally unsupported. They are accountable to nobody. They are just there, and that's why I think if we all are in that boat, then I think we'll get somewhere.
Yeah, I like that idea. I really do. And to me, it's because it's kind of a baseline thing. And it is interesting, right? If it is just sort of seen as one specialized person whose, pseudo job it is, I think then it adapts some of that same sort of stigma that you have with, seeking the help of a therapist in the first place. So yeah, I think just making, to me, it's really about just like getting people comfortable with sort of spotting an issue and just knowing how to respond, like some education on how to respond. And some of it's not rocket science, but it takes some practice, and I think having that knowledge helps, right? Because I think people, for example, who are going through depression are going to have a lot of the same natural responses to not want to see someone, or to isolate and to shut things down, or to not follow up. And so I think it just sort of cues you into some of those practices and says, here's kind of what you can do. Here's the kinds of open-ended questions you can ask, or the kinds of follow-up you can do, gentle follow-up. But yeah, I do like that idea of making it more like a baseline thing, and not sort of putting it on, one small group of people.
And if that teaches us all a little bit of listening skills and questioning skills, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah.
I saw a piece of research very recently done in the UK, where employers and employees have been asked what's important and what's not. And in terms of mental health and well-being, employers and employees are sort of neck and neck in terms of the most important people to talk to is someone who is a mental health and well-being specialist, someone like me, for example, and or a well-being specialist. But a number three for the employers was thought, yeah, absolutely, it must be important to talk to the HR department's health and well-being person. For the employees, that came in at number 6.
Yeah.
So employees do not want to engage with HR. They do not trust HR. They do not trust anything provided by the company. And I think that would make a lot of people reluctant to speak to a first aider because, yeah, well, he or she has been put there by the company. So is it actually confidential?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think it's very true. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I think about on this issue, and then I know we can wrap, is, but I wanted to make this point. I think when people talk about this, one reaction that some people have is, oh, well, now I have to share like all my private business with everyone, and what if I just don't want to? And I think, yeah, I'm not advocating doing that. I don't think you always have to, get into what exactly is going on, but really just to be able to sort of say, hey, is everything okay? Just to check to make sure. I don't think you have to disclose every private, confidential, internal thing. And I think that's a reaction that people have, like, oh, now I'm being forced to talk about this. But yeah. I thought we should address that point too.
That is a very good point, Mike, and I'm so glad that you picked it up because we do need to include that in this chat. Just because you can talk to somebody doesn't mean you must, and it doesn't mean that you actually want to.
Right.
So we have to respect people's desire to talk or their desire to not talk. So I think we are probably where we were when the mental health first aid thing started, but we've ironed out or spotted a number of teething problems. And how we deal with them, I'm not quite sure, but my suggestion would be to get everybody on the course, not just one or two. So should we call it a wrap and ask people to give us their comments and their views? And it'll be interesting to hear where everybody else is in this debate, if they have jumped on that bandwagon at all. So thank you for staying with us for the duration, and we shall see you in another video very short. Take care.